Exciting to me, that is that the Bible speaks to every issue of life. It doesn't speak just to personal issues, doesn't speak just to family issues, doesn't speak just to, say, church issues. It actually speaks to governmental issues, how government, national government, is supposed to function. That's what motivated me to write this book, Well-Versed, Biblical Answers to Today's Tough Issues. But some say, well, wait a minute. When you're interpreting the Bible, that's just your interpretation. Mine may be different. Well, there are what's called hermeneutical principles. Fancy word. Hermeneutical means the science of interpretation. How do we interpret this book? Let me run through some guidelines that I followed as I'm interpreting the Bible as it applies, let's say, to government issues. Number one, allow the Holy Spirit just to speak to me. Number two, that is, take into account the whole Bible. What does the entire Bible say? Don't pull one verse out all by itself, but what does the whole Bible have to say? Take it in the context of the whole. In other words, if you come to a tough verse, use the rest of the Bible to interpret that tough verse. Number three, what kind of literature is it? You analyze the type of literature, that tells you to know how to use it. Number four, what's the context? What was the context of that particular writing? Who's the author? Why was he or she writing? What was the purpose of it? What was going on in that text? The next one is word study. What do those particular words, when they're used in other scriptures, what do those particular words mean? So you do a word study, an analysis. The sixth thing is what I call the Old Testament, New Testament connection. The Old Testament sets the stage for the New. The New Testament cannot be understood without the Old. The seventh thing is texts should be taken literally. Literally, if they're intended to be taken literally, and most texts are. If in doubt, you should take a text literally. That's true most of the time. And then 8, revelation. Now this one's, I think, is kind of a fun one. What is God trying to show you? What is he wanting to show you about his truth? The 9th one is, what are the overarching principles that have application to today? You take a look at something in its historical context. Okay, that's in ancient Israel, for example. Does that apply in ancient Israel in a theocracy? Does that apply several millennia later in America in a constitutional republic that runs by democratic principles? Is there a principle that is timeless and moves across all that time and moves across when there's different structures of government? And number 10, adherence. And that's adherence to what the text is actually saying. Avoid what's called eisegesis. Eisegesis is when you take a verse and you try to read into it, whatever you want to read into it. Instead, exegesis, allow the text to speak. Let me say one more thing. There seems to be in some people's Bible only one verse, and it only has 2 words. It's like they crossed all the rest of the Bible out. It is astounding. It's these 2 words, judge not. Some people, that's the only 2 words from the entire Bible they know. And if you say something, oh, you're judging, judge not. Well, first of all, for them to say that, they're judging. They're violating the very thing they're accusing you of. They say, you shouldn't be judging. Well, they are by doing that. So that doesn't work. But secondly, they don't even know what the verse actually says. Again, remember that whole thing about context is important? Well, it actually says, don't judge. In effect, unless you're willing to be held accountable by the same standards. Don't judge unless you're willing to be judged by the same standards. And are we? The answer is yes. I'm willing to be judged by the standards that God has established here. I don't judge the Bible, it judges me. So absolutely, we make judgment calls all the time. We make judgment calls, what kind of a car we drive, where we want to live, the jobs we want to do, the person we want to date, the person we want to marry, the ball games we go to, the concerts we go to. We're judging all the time. The friends we choose not to have. You're always judging. You're making discriminatory calls. You are intentionally choosing certain things. That's called judging. So the Bible actually does say judge not, but it says unless you're willing to be held accountable to the same standard. I am. I suspect you are as well. So we as followers of Christ, absolutely we judge. Some will still say, that's just your opinion. No, it's not. We're going through a careful process, hermeneutical principles, with the Bible, analyzing these 10 steps and saying, let's make sure we're taking what God has to say about this. I've done a lot of interviews, and I was doing one on CNN on one occasion with a very well-known, nationally known interviewer. And over the course of the time, he kept probing me some questions. I said, you know what, let me set the stage for the show. You're asking my opinion about something. My opinion doesn't really count at all. In fact, I won't say it's kindly, but your opinion doesn't count either. Our opinions don't really matter a lot. What I came on this show to represent was God's opinions. His opinions matter. And that's what this book is all about. And that's what this book tries to explain.